Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 3 of Anime Kiwi. I'm Mike.
I'm Katara.
And we're going to be talking about episodes 7 through 10 of the anime we call Monster.
What we call it?
I mean, we're calling it the right thing. I bet somebody calls it something different.
Oh, okay. Maybe there's a pet name for it out there somewhere.
Yeah. Mon.
Good God, no.
Just like Monhun, but just only monsters.
I refuse to call it that. I will never call it that. Even as a Monster Hunter fan, I will never call it Monhun.
You mean a Monhun fan?
Fuck you.
What do you think of these episodes?
I I'll avoid calling it filler because something this show does quite well compared to a lot of other shows that I've seen is that they have episodes that are kind of like side stories almost, but they still kind of drive the plot forward, and they have important plot bits and character points in those episodes still, which is really good. But the plot, the kind of pacing kind of slowed down a bit in these 4 episodes, I think.
Yeah. Although, I think you can call them filler. There's such a thing as good filler. That's basically what these were. Filler's like a jump scare to me, personally. It's often used poorly, but it can be used very effectively if you're using it right.
I mean, like, filler to me is like when a serialized show does like a Monster of the Week sort of episode, and that to me is filler, you know? And I think calling this filler would be kind of a mischaracterization, but it's still...
Yeah, it would be. Yeah,
I just think it's nowhere near as fast-paced as the first 6 were, but, like, I think that's fine, because they've reached a point where the story can sort of breathe a bit, and they can kind of... Because we're getting into the more conspiracy nut aspect of the show, I guess. Cause,
yeah, especially in the next week's worth of episodes, we're gonna get into that shit pretty heavy. I kind of remember what's coming up.
Well, I'm kind of hoping for some kind of big weird revelation, because it kind of seems like the show's going in that direction, which is why I made that kind of insane prediction at the end of the last podcast.
You standing by that with these 4?
Yeah, there's nothing really in these episodes to indicate that what I thought might be going on was wrong. It'd be a really interesting kind of spin on what's going on, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess I'm not sure what episode this is revealed in, but they kind of reveal that, like the 2 twins are orphans of some type that kind of conned their way into being taken in by a family.
I'm not sure what episode that was either.
And it seems like this has happened several times where they're taken in and then the people who took them in just died. And the sister had no idea any of this was happening.
Looks like it's episode 7. The first one that we're talking about today. So yeah, episode 7 starts off with Tenma and Nina getting back to the house of the Fortners, and as everyone on this earth suspected, they're dead along with the journalist. Tenma finds out that the phone is cut, and just as they're leaving, some police officers come up and say they're there to investigate, and they start to escort Dr. Tenma and Nina to the police station. But Tenma notices that they're in the middle of nowhere, and starts questioning them. They say, "Oh, we're bringing you to the station, the next precinct over. Don't worry about it." And then Tenma starts putting the pieces together in its head and gets really suspicious. And I thought this scene was very well done, because even though it was pretty obvious at a lot of points that they were under Johan's thumb, there was also maybe some room for doubt that they weren't. You kind of...
Yeah, that's what I wanted to point out as well. I thought this scene was incredibly strong in the way that it was done, because they dropped those points of doubt in there, but it's also kind of a thing of like the rub in that scene wasn't who are these people? Are they bad guys? Because he figures out pretty quick that they are bad guys, but the question then becomes, what the hell do I do? And he's trying to rack in his brain, trying to think of what exactly in the situation am I supposed to do? I can't think of anything, and it's a really easy scene to put yourself into and to try and think about what you might do in the same situation, and it just seems like an impossible situation. So his solution is pretty much the only idea that I would have had as well.
Yeah, and up to that point where they get to, I guess it's checkpoint, and they get pulled over by another couple of uniformed officers. They're kind of, I guess, assuaging his suspicions. So every once in a while he's starting to go back to, maybe I'm just overthinking this. And then you get to where they're out, and these detectives call him Dr. Tenma. And he's like, I never told you I was a doctor. And then he jumps over the side with Nina into the river because they were on a bridge.
Yeah, because he kind of needed that one indication that this is for certain what he thinks it is, because he just has that small amount of doubt. But he just needed that one strong indication that something is truly wrong here. But yeah, I just think the strength of the scene isn't the fact that, are we supposed to doubt that these are bad or good guys or not, but we're supposed to try and put yourself in that situation and try and think like, yeah, you may be able to figure out that they're bad guys pretty quick, but what exactly do you do about that? That's the hard part. And as you can see, once he starts figuring that out, he gets kind of like Nina's face. She's kind of had that terrified look on the entire time, and then once Tenma starts putting it together, his face starts to make like a very similar frightened look comes over his face.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both kind of just sitting there terrified.
Because Tenma at this point has realized that Johan's got his fingers in the police department too, so potentially nowhere safe.
Yeah, I started to think about, maybe this is a bit of a digression, but I kept trying to think about what exactly it would take for Johan to convince these people to do his bidding, the cops or whatever. And
yeah, I don't know about the cops. I mean, some of the other people, you can think of what might happen, but
yeah, because he seems to target like crazy people basically, and that becomes clearer in the later episodes, which we'll talk about later, I guess. But
maybe he's got dirt on him or is blackmailing him somehow. Yeah,
that's the only thing I can think of is that he's got something on them that is causing them to do his bidding, basically, or he's threatening them some way. Maybe they're already dirty cops and he's just got more dirt on them. But it just seems like it's a bit incongruent with the rest of his like MO, basically.
I imagine we'll find out just how wide his web is spread.
Yeah, I'm expecting if they do touch on this, that the way that he was able to do it is probably going to be like, I'm expecting it to be pretty plausible. It's just, it started to break down in my mind a bit, but maybe I was just looking for something to criticize the show over that, I just gotta expect that they might talk about this later on.
Yeah, this is a little less than 10% of the way through.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long ride.
Yeah. Anyway, so Tenma and Nina have escaped now. I think it just skips to them being at their little cabin shack thing.
Yeah, it does.
And then Nina basically tells Tenma what happened in the house, the Lieberts, at the very beginning, saying that Johan killed them and that they weren't their real parents. And then she eventually got the gun, and Johan said, if you're going to shoot me in the head, and then throw the gun outside. And then she did that.
There's a detail that she drops in that he tells her to do that while laughing, and he seems like he's not really fazed by the idea of his sister killing him.
Yeah, he's off in the head.
He's a strange boy.
But then Johan goes to the police in Heidelberg to tell the police there about what he knows about the murders. But then he sees the two inspectors who are on the take from Johan, and he backs off. And he gets back to find Nina gone, and she left him a note and some sandwiches. And while this is happening, the gardener that was attacking Nina back at the castle is found dead. And Inspector Lung has found a necktie that he thinks belonged to Tenma, and of course it did. So that's making him suspect that Tenma's behind all this shit.
I'm not sure if you agree with me here, but I think like the place that it was discarded was put there purposefully in kind of a way to implicate him, because I don't think it's just a case of that he just discarded the necktie. It's a case of that, the way that Johan's been operating this entire time,
very deliberate.
It's very deliberate, but he's also cleaning up his tracks everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like another indication of that, like a separate way to clean up his tracks is to implicate somebody else. So like it's even less likely that somebody will consider him.
And as we see in episode 10, he's also toying with Tenma this whole time. He's playing cat and mouse with him. So this is him giving a twist in the rules. This is his secret ingredient for the Iron Chef they're playing. Battle necktie.
Yeah.
You don't know anything about Iron Chef, do you?
No, I don't. I've never watched that in my life, but...
You should watch Iron Chef, it's great.
I've never been one for that cooking show stuff, but the back and forth between Tenma and Johan and stuff, that's like one of the strongest aspects of the show so far, the way that it's written.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe this is kind of gives you an idea of how I consider anime and stuff, but I almost automatically assume that when I'm watching an anime that it's going to go for the dumb or the easy plot point, and it's not going to be smart and well crafted. So it kind of takes me back when I watch an anime that is just as smartly crafted as like some of my favorite shows that aren't anime, I
mean, that seems to be a decent enough thing to assume for television in general, because the majority of TV is like that, which is why it's pleasing when you find one that's not.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it's a quality that's unique to anime. Even movies.
Yeah, I just think that I might have that prejudice against anime a bit stronger than I have than other mediums.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, episode 8.
Are you asking?
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Okay. So Tenma is back at work as a doctor now. He's read the note from Nina and eaten the sandwiches, and the note basically says, "Hey, thanks for helping me out. I'm gonna do what I have to now, later." Yeah, so Tenma
it's kind of like it's more like a go back to your life sort of note.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're putting yourself out too much for me, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I'll deal with Johan, you don't worry about it. But as we learn in episode 10, it's not that easy. But Tenma is back in Dusseldorf at his surgery job. He'd apparently taken this as an official stay of absence from work, but he seems off. He doesn't seem to be as happy about healing people as much as he used to. He gets out of an operation, and he just kind of sighs and says it's over. And the doctors notice that he's off as well. Meanwhile, we see his ex-fiancée, Eva, right? Eva, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Lung goes to her, and she's super drunk, and it seems that that is her state of being now, since her world has come crashing down. And he starts asking questions about the necktie that he found at the castle. And Eva gets an idea. She doesn't give Lung any information, but she basically goes to Tenma and blackmails him, to which Tenma does not take the bait. So she calls the police on him, and he's on the lam now. He resigns from the hospital. He escapes in an ambulance before the police get there to take him in. And I thought this episode, in the scene where Lung was going to talk to Eva, that this was, out of these four, the best example of the sound design that we have liked a lot so far in this. And that this show does a thing that I have talked about liking a whole lot on podcasts, in that it knows how to use the absence of sound, especially the absence of music, very, very well.
Yeah, I definitely agree, but I guess that something that's rubbing me like the wrong way a bit is just that the way that she's characterized is really off-putting. Like, I kind of started to think that there isn't really any positive female characters in this show so far.
Nina's fine.
Yeah, but she's just kind of terrified and just sort of there. She's fine as a...
She'll come into her own.
Yeah, I hope so. It's just that, she's like the like the typical gold digger shrew sort of character, and I find that characterization kind of off-putting.
Also, Eva is a major character, I have now remembered. This is not the last we've seen of her.
Does she become even more horrible than this?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah, she's a main antagonistic force, if I remember correctly, for a chunk.
I guess, like, I have no problem with, these sorts of characters being in shows like this. It's just I like there to be a counterbalance, So if there's an example of this really horrible woman, there should be a counterbalance of, like, a positive female influence in the show as well,
Pretty sure Nina will become that, if I'm remembering right.
Well, that's cool then, because
there's no way she doesn't come back. I'm almost positive.
Like, if you have a show where, there's no positive female influence, and, like, it's impossible to, avoid the subtext of that this show has kind of negative things, like thinking about women and stuff. It's just, but I kind of always have that thought in my head when I'm watching movies or TV shows. I try to look for examples of, well-written women, because unfortunately, that's probably the rarest thing that you'll see, not just in Japanese anime, but in TV shows as well.
You want an example of very well-written women? Well, they're not good characters. They're very bad people, but they're very well-written. Go watch Unreal, like I told you to.
Well, like I said, when if I have the time, I might. Yeah,
I think it's probably the most up your alley show I've ever watched, and possibly one of my top shows that I've watched. At least the first season is. The second season's a little off yet, but
I just think, like, particularly in shows like this, these characters don't exist in a vacuum, and it's all about how the characters play off each other, and that's why I'm talking about having that counterbalance.
Yeah, that'll happen for her, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that'd be cool to see. I try to avoid criticizing a show too harshly until it's finally wrapped up and everything,
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Tenma's in the back of the ambulance, and we get a bunch of flashbacks. I'm not sure exactly what the point of them was. Was it just him, like, going over all of what's gone wrong?
This is the worst part in the show so far. It's kind of the let's replay all of this so that the audience remembers sort of flashback, and I hate that shit. Like, it's been barely, like, it's only 8 episodes so far at this point, right?
Yeah.
So why exactly are you already reiterating this information? I remember it very clearly. Like, you don't, it's just treating the audience like an idiot moment, and it's wasting time. But if this is the worst point in the show so far, then, it's probably going to be pretty decent, like, because this isn't really that big of a deal.
No, it was what, like 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, and all this time the police are going through the hospital, and the patients blockade them and say, no, Dr. Tenma wouldn't do this. He's a good doctor. He's a healer. He'd never kill anyone. So it's only basically Lung's influence that is against Tenma at this point. He has believers.
Yeah, this kind of feeds into my suspicion that Lung is like a Asperger's type, because he doesn't really consider that part.
He feeds into a theory the next episode has fed to me. We'll get to that.
Well, I'm excited. It's a Mikey theory this time.
Yeah. Anyways, after the clip show, we get a 5-month time skip, and Tenma is looking a little bit haggard, and he's hitchhiking somewhere. He's reading an old newspaper about a new couple that got killed, and he's the prime suspect. And then the episode closes on him reaching into his coat to a pistol. And then we get episode 9. It opens up on that same scene. That's the cold open. And then we get a scene where Lung is interrogating a mercenary, and he goes over a mercenary named Hugo Bernhardt, and he goes over this man's full career. He's been he did stuff for the Mossad, and he was helping in some Afghan rebel thing, and lots of different stuff. He's a career mercenary. And he's asking him about Tenma for some reason. And then we get a flashback to 5 months earlier, where Tenma is going to this mercenary's cabin to get trained in firearms. and we learn that the mercenary has taught lots of people who have used guns before and were bad with them, but he's never taught somebody who's never touched a gun before, like Tenma. And then we get lots of stuff about Tenma just getting better physically and kind of bonding with this mercenary and a girl who lives with him, who is the product of one of the mercenaries' career points, where he was in Myanmar and ducked into a house and killed the mother because the mother was about to shoot him. This episode is a lot of bonding with them, basically, but the part where the mercenary is talking about his career, it kind of dawned on me that he's kind of a monster in a different way than Johan. So it made me think that maybe the title of this series isn't necessarily talking about Johan solely, but that maybe it's an examination of what makes a monster and the different kinds of monsters in the world, I guess. Because like we have Johan, who's a sociopath. We have this guy who's just a kind of unfeeling mercenary dude. We have Lung, who's him, the Asperger detective, cares only about his case, not about what he does to other people to get his goal.
I always thought that was going to be the case. Always thought that, you know, the show being called Monster isn't just about Johan. It's kind of like the exploring the idea of the monster and, you know, what a real monster is, not like, you know, werewolves or whatever, but the idea that there are monsters in everyday life, and this is what monsters look like. You know, they are psychopaths or sociopaths, or they are kind of for-profit mercenaries, which are almost universally terrible people, and like unfeeling career types like Lung, and then like
we got the thieves like Heckle in the next episode, who's out for himself and basically sells Tenma off.
Yeah, and the terrorists.
The terrorists, yeah.
And Eva with her profiteering and ambitious marrying.
And then the whole time we have Tenma, who's starting to flirt the line with becoming a monster versus staying a good person, and kind of wrestling with staying on the good side of the line.
Yeah, like maybe this show's about him becoming that monster rather than him trying to find one, you know?
Yeah. So that's what I got out of this episode. I thought that this was probably the best episode out of the bunch, because I thought it had the best character moments, and basically is like, oh, hey, this is what the show is about. It's not only about Johan, it's about all these other people too.
Yeah, like the ending of the episode with the young girl, I thought was a bit sappy, but it really, like, it worked, you know.
Yeah, it was. I think that was to show that Tenma's still on the good side. He knows how to touch people in ways that the mercenary couldn't, and he turned her around a little bit.
And it's like she, in turn, was able to kind of reflect that onto the mercenary as well. So it kind of...
He's healing their souls, I guess.
Yeah, maybe a bit on the nose way to put it, but I guess it's just kind of like it's trying to impart the message that if you're a good person to people, it's not going to be just between you and one person. That kind of, you pay it forward, you know?
Yeah.
People become happy and better, and it kind of continues on. And
yeah, Tenma can't help but heal, even when he's trying to learn to kill.
Like, being a good person spreads like a disease. It's not a case of that you're just doing that to make yourself feel better. It makes the world a better place, basically.
Yeah, it's illustrating, this specifically is illustrating how good of a person Tenma still is, even when all this shit's piled on him.
Yeah, like the only reason he's doing this in the first place is just because of the guilt of having, resurrected Johan.
Yeah. And we saw in episode 7, I think, when he was talking to Nina, he's starting to feel guilt about saving this clearly fucked up, terrible guy.
Yeah, he's learning about what I was talking about the last podcast, where, you know, not every life has equal weight, and not because, you know, people are less successful, but because some people are evil, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes you don't know that until it's too late, in Tenma's case. But anyways, he bonds with them, At some point, the mercenary says she'll probably die hating me. The entire time I've lived with her, she's never smiled. And then Tenma has time with her, and they rescue Baby Bird. And then at the end of the episode, once Tenma's left, he left them with some chopsticks and some Japanese food. The mercenary's struggling with it, and she laughs at him. He's like, What? And that's basically the end of that. He walks out of the interview with Lung, and she's waiting for him, and they walk off.
It's kind of like but that's the sapping moment I was talking about, where she kind of like smiles and like holds his hand, and that makes him kind of like break down and start crying. Like it's sappy, but it's a moment that sort of works, you know?
Yeah, it shows that they're not as broken as they were in the flashback anymore because of Tenma.
Yeah, the only people that are truly, you know, you can't fix are those psychopath types. That's just who they are. You can't fix that.
Yeah. Been to episode 10. I forget where Tenma is right now. No, we don't see Tenma yet. We see a new character, Heckle. He's in a bar, I think. And there's news about a new dead couple in town. It's a local councilman and his wife. And Heckle is breaking into their house to steal their stuff. Since they're dead, no one's going to notice, right? And then he gets to a room and feels a bad feeling. And Tenma's behind him. And they hear sirens. And they both go in the same direction. Tenma follows him. And he's recognized by Heckle, who is trying to get him to go be like an underworld doctor. Basically, Heckle's trying to extort Tenma into making money for him as a doctor. And he just so happens to know the person who killed the couple. And he brings Tenma to him, and we find out that it's not Johan, but another mentally unsound individual who had befriended Johan, who was living with the couple under the name of Erish. And we also find out that Heckle was casing their house for a month and didn't see Johan the entire time. So he's not completely sure this guy is on the level, but he tells Tenma that Johan left him a message in the study. So Johan knew that Tenma was after him. He's playing cat and mouse for sure with Tenma. And then the killer shoots himself. So Tenma and Heckle have to get the fuck out of there. And they go back to the house and the study because Heckle found out where the safe was from the killer. And Tenma finds his message behind a painting. And basically, I think it says, look at me, see how big the monster inside me has grown. And to Tenma, this means that Johan is, like, loving the shit out of what he's doing to these couples. He is maybe even beyond sociopath at this point. He's, like, a genuine monster.
I kind of took the thing that he wrote as to say, like, every moment that Tenma isn't able to catch Johan, like, and the more people he kills, the worse it gets. So, like, you know, if he's growing as a monster, that means his body count is growing, and that means that Tenma is failing to catch him. So it's kind of a direct taunt of, you know, you're not able to catch me.
Yeah. But anyways, so after they leave, Heckle basically shoves Tenma into a car that's going to an injured person who can't go to a hospital for whatever shady reason. And Tenma gets there and finds out that it is somebody who got shot in a terrorist attack that happened earlier in the day. I think it was a politician, a former East German politician it was, and the guy who did the attack was a lawyer.
I think it was like they ran a company of some sort, or it was just an acronym.
They said GWE, which I came up with two things when I searched for that, which is a big German thing that translates to Society for Scientific Development. Either that or the German Water and Energy Company.
It's probably the latter, because it seems like these are people that all lost their jobs when the wall came down.
Mm-hmm. And it sounded like the company was buying up land and doing stuff to it.
Yeah, so that's probably that latter company then. So, yeah, it seems like they terrorist attack on that water company.
Yeah. And Tenma says, you need to go to a hospital, dude. And then they go back and forth. And then Tenma's like, fine, I'll do it. After the terrorist, I guess he starts showing some sort of remorse or reason for it. Tenma didn't want to do it originally because it was indiscriminate killing.
Well, actually, like, and this is kind of an important moment. He reaches a point where he's just about to die, and he starts to feel that fear that Johan talks about, like enjoying that terror, before they're about to die. And I think the reason that Tenma stopped and was like, okay, I'll save you now, is because he understands that fear now, because that's what it means to kill somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And like, the only way that you're going to enjoy that fear is if you're somebody like Johan. So I think in Tenma's eyes,
he didn't want part of that.
I think in Tenma's eyes, saving him once he's made that realization is kind of like, what would be a word for it? Like rehabilitating him almost?
Yeah, because we've seen in this segment that Tenma's basically not afraid to get shot. He's in the 5 months he was with the mercenary, he's gotten hard, but he isn't a monster yet, I think is the entire point of this scene. He isn't so hard that he's not a person anymore.
Yeah, I think in his situation, he's still about as good as you could expect him to be.
Yeah, but he's not as good as he once was. He hesitates to save this guy, whereas before he probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't believe that every life is equal thing anymore.
Yeah. But anyway, he basically he puts pressure on it and then staples his arm shut and then starts carrying him to the hospital. And the police start coming, and the guy says, okay, put me down. Go do your thing. Get out of here. And that's basically the end of that episode, right?
I think so, yeah.
So yeah, episode 9 was the big one for me, the mercenary flashback.
Yeah, I think they pulled off that final moment well, and you know, even though it's kind of a side story, a bit fillery, it's still like it's full of character moments for Tenma, and it still drives the plot forward and everything.
Yeah, and I think it's super important for the theme of the show, assuming that is what the theme of the show is.
Well, I don't think it's a question that that's what the show's about, really.
Yeah, that's the episode that really makes it prominent in my eyes. But next week we have 511 Kinderheim, which I recall that being a big moment for plot and the conspiracy bullshit.
Well, I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. I guess anything to say about these 4 episodes now that we've gone over them? Now that we're done?
I think all the important moments I kind of mentioned while we were doing the recaps.
Okay. So I guess we can wrap up then.
Yeah.
Next week we'll be watching 11 through 14. As always, you can email us at anime@gamekiwi.net. We're on Facebook and Twitter at the Game Kiwi. We're on iTunes as Pod Kiwi. We're on YouTube as Game Kiwi. And you can find our RSS and audio-only versions of this podcast at podcast.gamekiwi.net. I think that's it. Be on the lookout. We're having other stuff besides Anime Kiwi coming out now. We got Yakuza started back up. The Mary Kiss Tochikon thing will be up eventually. It'll be up when it's up. I got a tabletop thing that's coming eventually. I don't know how long that's going to take.
Is it a bit more editing intensive than this, I would guess?
Yes. The first episode is going to have 2 versions. It's going to have a version where I excise as much of the rule talk as possible, and then one where I keep some of it in case there's somebody who wants to know how the game works. And then future episodes will probably be no rule stuff, unless it's can't be cut out smoothly.
Yeah, rules are boring. Fuck rules.
I figure the first episode is probably good to have a version in case somebody wants to know how the fuck the system works, since it's not a common system. But after that, whatever.
Yeah, like I've listened to a little bit of the Adventure Zone and like the early parts where they're very rules heavy, like really hard to get through, just kind of boring.
They made edits of those that get rid of that stuff.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, that's coming up, and we got Extra Life coming up in. We have not decided yet if we're doing it at the end of October, beginning of November, but it's coming in the fall. So I guess be on the lookout for that. save up your money. We're going to be playing for the UC Davis Children's Hospital this year. And you can actually find us. Let me pull up our page, our URL for that. It is www.extra-life.org/participant/GameKiwi. We are under Team Giant Bomb.
Hopefully we can clear what the total was last year. It was what?
It's a little over 1,000. Right now I have the goal says 200, but I'm going to raise that because we're going to get way more than 200.
Just set it to 1,000, man. Aim high.
Yeah, I might as well. I'll change it. But yeah, that's the link. Look first there. You can donate before then if you want, but it's always more fun to see your name pop up and get read on stream. So
it's what the Twitch empire was built on.
Yeah, you can also help us get higher ranking in the Team Giant Bomb donation ranking thing too, which is always good. But anyway, that's this episode of Anime Kiwi. I'm Mike.
I'm Cat Dodo.
Thanks for listening, and as always, keep it anime.